In this video, we're covering the PlayStation Network disaster and even more. There's a lot of stuff that no one is talking about. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. And in these early week videos, I usually say, I hope you had a great weekend playing video games, but you didn't, because the PlayStation Network is down, and that had a fallout effect that caused a lot more problems. So I've broken this video up into a few sections, starting out with communication. So when the PlayStation Network went down on Friday, I'd say the biggest problem is that Sony just didn't say anything. This is a problem that has come up multiple times over the past year, starting with the PlayStation Network going down for over 8 hours multiple times throughout 2024. Sony never said anything. It would just go down. You looked at Ask PlayStation, which is like a side account from the separate PlayStation official account, and sometimes they'd update us and say, yep, there's a problem, we're investigating it. Sometimes they wouldn't say anything at all. Even when the PlayStation Stars program, your voluntary rewards program that you made and then have people interact with when they make purchases on the PlayStation Store, when that went down for over a month, they never said anything. So there's a complete top to bottom lack of communication, and it was no different this time around. The only way I found out that the PlayStation Network was down was not by turning on my PlayStation 5. My mom slipped on the ice and broke her wrist, so I've been having to take care of her. I got Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter DMs from you guys saying, do you know what's going on? That shows a core problem with PlayStation's communication, where people don't go to the official PlayStation account. They don't go to Ask PlayStation. They go to me, a commentary YouTuber, to ask what's going on in hopes that I know what's going on. I had to tell them that I have no idea what's going on because Sony has not said anything about this. And as far as I'm aware, it's not affecting everyone. It could be affecting some people in Europe. It could be affecting some people here in Michigan. Who knows? Because Sony never says anything when their PlayStation Network goes down. And then the icing on the cake for all of this is that when things were finally fixed and the PlayStation Network was back up, the Ask PlayStation account just tweeted out something like, hey, it's back up. Sorry you had to deal with this. Enjoy your gaming time. That is nowhere near good enough. And that brings me to the second section of this video, which is what's going on with the PlayStation Network. Guys, I have a 1 gigabit Ethernet setup. I have multiple routers all over my house. I have a business level internet setup in my house. And depending on what PlayStation I'm on, it's a complete crapshoot on whether or not the PlayStation Network is going to connect correctly. On every device I own, whether it's my iPhone, my Windows computer, my MacBook, my iPad, I get at least 800 megabits up and down no matter what, 24/7 with this internet that I have. On my PlayStation, it caps out at 80 megabits up and down, which is unacceptable in my opinion. I don't care if it's the Wi-Fi chip. I don't care if it's the way the PS5 interacts with security on Wi-Fi networks. I know you're supposed to use Ethernet for the PlayStation console, but my house was built in the 30s. I don't have this drywall situation that a lot of new build houses have where you can run Ethernet all through your entire house. I cannot do that. There's physically no way for me to do that with my plaster walls. So I have to use Wi-Fi. If I want to game upstairs at my desk up there, if I want to game in my living room, if I want to game down here in the basement, I have to use Wi-Fi. I am buying a console for minimum $450 in 2025. It should work with Wi-Fi. My Xbox Series X, my Nintendo Switch, my Steam Deck, they all work just fine with Wi-Fi. I don't care what the problem is. Sony's consoles should work as good as all of those devices with Wi-Fi, and they don't. And on top of that, this has happened way too much. We've had situations like this where it's gone down for 8 hours. We've had situations where it goes down for full days. We've had situations where PlayStation Stars disappears for 24 hours at a time, and they do nothing on the back end to correct it. They put a band-aid over the issue that caused the problem to begin with. They don't fix it. And it's just going to keep happening as long as this continues on, where they refuse to fix the back end issues that are running the PlayStation Network and have been ruining it ever since the PS3 days when it went down for over a month. So yeah, I think they need to do an Operation Health type thing where they take a step back and leave the current PlayStation Network running, while in tandem with that, rebuild it from the ground up and push an update to every PlayStation console where it works with a new version of the PlayStation Network. It has just gotten to the point where it's unacceptable for the amount of money they charge, not only for the consoles, but to access the internet as a whole on these machines. There is no excuse for it to go down ever. Not just once in a year, not just 2 times a year, ever. It should never go down outside of the entire internet going down. It's just not only not acceptable for this to happen infrequently, it's not acceptable for it to happen at all. And that brings me to the third situation here, which is digital games. So if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know that whenever there's a news story where 70% of people, 75% of people for Capcom or whatever are buying digital games over physical, I see that as a bad sign. I understand the convenience of it. I love playing on my PC right over there on my desk. Steam is a digital digital platform. I'm going to talk about that more in a second, but there needs to be the option for physical games because of what happened this weekend. So when the PlayStation Network went down, there are a lot of people who want to play single player games like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 or Stellar Blade or Rise of the Ronin or Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and they ran into the situation that my failing Wi-Fi chip in my launch PS5 has caused, which is if you disconnect from the PlayStation Network, there is no grace period on your licenses being verified by your console. When the thing goes offline, unless you set it to offline mode, your games are inaccessible. So if you run into a situation like the one this weekend where the PlayStation Network goes down, your games don't work. A lot of people were tweeting at me that their games would give them this message that says, can't verify the license for this content, you cannot play it. So the only fix for that situation is to have the physical disc. But even that is not good enough because of another thing I've been complaining about, which is developers not finishing their games. So when you get a disc-based game these days, a lot of times it's just a coaster, right? Like it's the license on the disc. And even when they have some version of the game loaded onto the disc, it is never the full version of the game. There are a few outliers like Death Stranding Director's Cut, Ghost of Tsushima's Director's Cut, Horizon Forbidden West Definitive Edition. Those later versions of the games, they'll put the entire game on the disc. So if you run into a situation like this where you can't access the internet, you can put those discs in your console and the game that installs off that disc will be playable and it'll be the up-to-date version of the game. But if you buy a new game like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 that has a big day one patch, or Stalker 2 on the Xbox Series X, which I'm not even sure if that came out physically, or Starfield, for example, if you put those discs in your console, the version that installs off the disc is basically unusable. So it's not really a save in this situation where unless you put Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in within the past month and downloaded the PS5 Pro patch with all the updates, if you have the disc version of that game, it's not really going to save you in the short term when the network goes down, because you're not really going to be able to play a version of that game without being able to download it from the PlayStation servers, which are inaccessible. And going back to Steam, if you guys didn't know, I have a channel called Deck Ready, which is the exact same as this channel, but it's about the Steam Deck, and they have this figured out. The Steam Deck is a console that you can take out of your house. You download your games from Steam to it. There are no physical games on PC. Everything is downloaded from Steam. And the cool thing about the Steam Deck is once you download a game to that console, if you go offline, you can play that game forever. It literally never has to check in with Steam to make sure you have the license for that game. So say I bought Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, downloaded it to my Steam Deck, ran the game once to make sure everything's installed, went offline and refunded the game. From that point forward, until I connect to the internet once again, I can play that game. I can play Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 forever until I connect to the internet on my Steam Deck. It's super consumer friendly. It puts me first as someone who bought a Steam Deck. It treats me like a first-class citizen in the world of Steam Deck gaming, because Valve is saying, hey, you bought our hardware, you should be able to play games on it. And the cool thing is, if I have Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 on my Steam Deck and I go offline and my wife wants to play it on my main gaming PC while it's connected online, we can play the same copy of the game at the same time as long as I'm offline on the Steam Deck. And that's amazing. I think it just goes to the top, which is an overall sort of air of laziness that Sony has, where they say, if it ain't broke, let's never fix it. If the PSN works 95% of the time, it's not worth investigating why it goes down that 5% of the time. If people aren't complaining about 99% of the time this license situation with the PS5, we're never going to take the time to actually fix it, because if someone's not complaining about it, it's not a problem. The difference between Sony and Valve is that Valve goes out of their way to make the experience as good as possible for every single Steam gamer, whether you're on a gaming PC, whether you're on the Steam Deck, whether you're on your phone streaming from the cloud. They put in work in the background, even when no one is asking, to make sure that that online connectivity and the consumer focused platform that they've developed is the best on the market. And that's why when the Epic Game Store comes out, when the EA Play app comes out, when the Ubisoft launcher comes out, people get defensive. They say, I am never using this. You could make it as good as possible, and I will never not use Steam because Steam has our backs. It's really weird how this timing worked out, but I just posted a video on my Instagram over the weekend that was like Steam's consumer protection, and it was the scene from No Country for Old Men where Anton Chigurh has the silent shotgun and he busts into the motel room and shoots like 3 people in the bathroom in the hotel room, just blows them away. That is the level that Valve operates at, and they charge way less. You get free online access with Steam. You get the same game recording as the PS5. You just get an overall great experience from top to bottom, and I'm paying for that on PlayStation. I expect it to be at least at the level of Steam, if not better, for how much money I'm giving them every single year. It's just ridiculous. And the last future problem that this presents that needs to be solved is the future handheld. Sony is working on a competitor to Xbox's handheld and the Steam Deck, and that thing theoretically will be able to play digital PlayStation 5 and 4 games outside of your house. That's not going to work with the current situation where every time that console goes offline, you can't play your digital games. They need to figure out some system where it can check every month, every 3 months, every 6 months, just to make sure that you have the licenses for those games. And then at that point, it should just trust you. You can't even refund games on the PlayStation Network. You can do it if you message them and you use your PlayStation Stars level 4 to actually talk to someone at support, and you really cry and complain and say, look, I don't want this game anymore. In those 1 out of 99 situations, they will give you a refund. But on Steam, if you played a game less than 2 hours, you can get a refund. And they say it's within a couple of weeks. I've done it years after, where I said, hey, I bought this game, I never played it. 9 times out of 10, Steam will give me a refund no matter what. Even with that, they provide a better situation than Sony. And if Sony wants to make a handheld, they've got to figure something out, because it's not going to work if you have to be connected to the internet at all times to actually play these games on your console that you paid hundreds of dollars for. And that brings me to the last section of this video. I am so sick and tired of people defending this and going to bat left and right, dying on the sword for these massive companies that all they do is screw us over every chance they get. I have seen so many people in the media space saying this future that everyone is building to, where every game is not only digital, but the next step of that is streaming games from the cloud and having all your games on every device possible. That is the beautiful future that we're working towards. It's not good, guys. It's never going to happen correctly, because right now, when you have a console that can play games it actually downloads or rips off of the disc, that does not work even 90% of the time. And when anyone gives the lightest criticism of these games being unfinished, they've got 5 million media people ready to go to bat for them and say, you just got to deal with it because more people have access to games. And that's this holistic good thing. I don't want that. If it's going to make the experience worse, which it undeniably has over the past few years, it is not worth going towards that future. I would prefer the situation stagnate back to when the PS4 was out and you could buy a game on a disc, you could play the game off the disc, and you didn't need to be connected to the internet to use this console that you paid hundreds of dollars for. It is just not worth it. And if it's bad now, when you can download games and play them offline, think of how bad it's going to be when you can't. When all these games are in the cloud and you have an app on your phone or on your TV, or every device is like the PlayStation Portal, these games could just disappear. You're paying to rent games. You're going to end up paying hundreds of dollars to rent games until Ubisoft or Sony or Microsoft or whoever decides they don't want to support that game anymore. They ran out of space on their server, they wipe it off, suddenly you lose access to that game. And in that time period where it was accessible, it's entirely dependent on their servers working. They can't even get it working when we have the ability to play these games offline a little bit. And when you can't do it at all, it's going to be a disaster. They have no intention or goal to actually fix these online services when they don't need to work 100% of the time. There's no way they're going to do it when it does need to work 100% of the time to actually be able to access these games. I get free games from time to time. That has never influenced my opinion. If I don't like a game, half the time I won't even talk about it because it's not even worth it. I don't want to come on here and bitch and moan and be a doomer and make sure everything is played out as bad as possible. I am not an outrage farmer by any means. But over the past few years, I've seen the same thing happening. Games come out unfinished, core services don't work, people defend the companies. They don't defend the people paying the money. I am always on the side of consumers and the people paying the money because that's me. I pay for the vast majority of my games. But yeah, until the people who get constant access to these companies actually start doing it in favor of the people who are watching their content, I don't think anything's going to change. I feel like that's the only sort of solution here, and I don't see it changing in the future. But hopefully this was a wake-up call for Sony and they rebuild the PlayStation Network. But yeah, 5 days isn't enough. It needs to work all the time. You need to start talking to us more, and you need to look at Steam and how they do things, because in my opinion, that's the bare minimum of how things should work. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this single topic video. I hope your PS5 is working. I hope you're having some great times playing some great games. I bought Hunt Showdown, which I've been playing on PC on my PlayStation 5. I'll be playing it there. So if you see me online and you want to hop into a game, I would love to play with you, because playing solo in that game is a death sentence. But that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.